The Anderson family's annual 4th of July BBQ had always been a display of wealth and status. But this year, Barbara had outdone herself. Crystal champagne flutes caught the summer sunlight, while imported linens draped every table on her manicured lawn. Everyone who was anyone in Springfield Heights was there, eager to witness another perfectly orchestrated event by the self-proclaimed matriarch of old money society. I watched my mother-in-law glide through her guests in her designer sundress, accepting compliments about her new fountain installation with practiced modesty. 10 years of marriage to her son James hadn't softened her disdain for me, the public school teacher who'd trapped her golden boy with pregnancy. "Mommy, when can we eat?" Emma, my 7-year-old, tugged at my sundress. Behind her, 5-year-old Lucas bounced impatiently on his heels. "Soon, sweetie. Let's go find your cousins." I tried to guide them toward the children's area, but Barbara's voice cut through the party chatter. "Children, time for the special holiday lunch." She clapped her manicured hands, summoning all the grandchildren like a queen gathering her court. James squeezed my shoulder. "See, Mom's making an effort." She even set up that cute kids' table with the patriotic centerpiece. I wanted to believe him. Maybe the therapy sessions he'd insisted she attend were finally paying off. But 15 years in teaching had given me a finely tuned radar for mean girl behavior, even from 60-year-old women in Channel. The kids gathered around Barbara, my two hanging slightly back, already conditioned to expect less. Her other grandchildren, the ones from her daughter's proper marriages to old money families, rushed forward eagerly. "Now then," Barbara announced, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "I have special place settings for everyone." She began distributing plates from a stack beside her. "Madeline, here's your wedgwood bone china, just like Grandmama's. Harrison, your royal Doulton with the family crest." One by one, she handed out expensive plates to her real grandchildren, making sure to mention the heritage and value of each piece. Finally, only Emma and Lucas remained, looking up at their grandmother with dwindling hope. "Oh yes," Barbara's smile turned sharp. "For you too?" She reached under the table and pulled out 2 crumpled paper bags from the local burger joint. These seemed more appropriate. We wouldn't want any accidents with the family heirlooms, would we? The silence that fell over the nearby guests was deafening. Emma's lower lip trembled, while Lucas just looked confused. James started forward, but his sister Catherine caught his arm, whispering something that made him hesitate. I'd promised James I wouldn't cause a scene at family events anymore. We'd agreed that confronting his mother only made things worse. But watching my children clutch those greasy paper bags, seeing the smirk on Barbara's face as she turned away, something inside me snapped. My hand went to my wallet, where the offshore account statements had been burning a hole for weeks. I discovered them while helping James clean out his father's study after the funeral 3 months ago. Documents Barbara thought she hidden well enough. "Actually, Barbara," I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet patio, "I brought something special for lunch too. Would you like to see it?" She turned back, irritation flickering across her carefully botoxed features. "Sarah, dear, not everything needs to be a production. The children are fine." "Oh, but this is quite a production." I opened my wallet slowly, watching her face. "You see, I've been doing some light reading about the Cayman Islands. Fascinating banking laws they have there." The crystal champagne flute in Barbara's hand trembled slightly. "I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about." "No." I pulled out the first statement. "That's odd, because according to this, someone who shares your name and social security number knows quite a bit about their banking system. About $2.3 million worth, in fact." The color drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. Behind her, I heard Catherine whisper, "Mother, what is she talking about?" Barbara recovered quickly, plastering on her society smile. "Sarah, dear, you're making a fool of yourself. Again. Why don't you take your children and their appropriate dining arrangements to the far table where you won't disturb the other guests?" "You know what disturbs me, Barbara?" I took a step forward. "What disturbs me is that you've had millions hidden away while claiming the family business was struggling. Making James work 60-hour weeks to save the company, missing his children's recitals and games, all while you're sitting on a fortune in offshore accounts." By now, everyone within earshot had stopped pretending not to listen. Barbara's carefully curated image of the wealthy widow supporting her late husband's struggling business was unraveling thread by thread. "Those documents are private family matters," she hissed, dropping all pretense of politeness. "Private? Like the way you privately told the country club my children weren't real Andersons? Or how you privately suggested to the private school board that their scholarships should go to more suitable candidates?" James finally broke free from Catherine's grip. "Mom, what's she talking about? What offshore accounts?" Barbara's hands shook as she set down her champagne flute. "James, darling, your wife is obviously having another one of her episodes. Remember how she imagined I was excluding her from the party card photos? You mean the ones where you literally photoshopped us out?" I pulled out my phone, ready to show that evidence too. 10 years of documented slights and cruelties, saved for this moment. But I didn't need to, because right then Emma, my brave, sensitive girl, spoke up. "Daddy, Grandma gives everyone else real plates every time. She says we're not good enough for them." The look on James's face was worth 1,000 offshore accounts. He turned to his mother, really seeing her for the first time. "Is this true? Have you been all this time?" Barbara's perfect mask cracked completely. "I was protecting our family legacy. These children, their mother, they're not really Andersons." "No," James said quietly, taking the paper bags from his children's hands. "You're right, they're better, because they don't need fancy plates to know their worth." He turned to me. "Show me the documents." I nodded, but before I could pull out the rest of the statements, Barbara lunged for my wallet. Barbara's perfectly manicured nails scraped my wrist as she grabbed for my wallet, sending papers scattering across the immaculate lawn. The party guests gasped collectively. Their entertainment for the afternoon had suddenly turned from subtle family drama to full-blown spectacle. "Mother," James shouted, but Barbara was already on her knees, scrambling to collect the damning evidence. Her designer sundress was stained with grass marks as she crawled, destroying any remnant of her dignified facade. "You can't take these. They're private," she shrieked, clutching a handful of papers to her chest. But she was too late. Catherine had already picked up one of the statements, her eyes widening as she scanned the numbers. "Mother, this is dated 3 weeks before Daddy's funeral, when you told us the business was about to go bankrupt. Catherine's voice shook when you made James mortgage his house to save the company." Barbara stood up, trying to smooth her dress and her composure simultaneously. "Catherine, darling, you don't understand business matters. Your father—" "Don't." James cut her off. "Don't you dare use Dad to justify this." He was holding another statement, his knuckles white against the paper. $2.3 million, Mom. While I was working 16-hour days, missing Lucas's first steps, Emma's dance recitals. I was preserving your inheritance." Barbara's voice took on the shrill tone I'd heard so many times when she was losing control of a situation. "Everything I did was for this family's future." "No," I stepped forward, picking up the last few scattered papers. "Everything you did was to control this family, to keep your perfect image intact. The devoted widow, sacrificing everything to save her husband's legacy. Meanwhile, you've been torturing your grandchildren because their mother didn't come from the right social circle." The party guests had formed a loose circle around us, phones discreetly recording. Barbara's carefully cultivated reputation was crumbling in front of Springfield Heights' entire social scene. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You don't know anything about sacrifice," Barbara spat. "You with your public school teaching job and your Target clothes. You've been trying to destroy this family since the day you trapped James with your pregnancy." Emma burst into tears at her grandmother's words, and Lucas wrapped his arms around his sister protectively. The sight of my children comforting each other while their grandmother raged broke something inside me. "Trapped him?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "James and I dated for 2 years before I got pregnant. We were already engaged. The only trap here is the one you set for your own son, using guilt and manipulation to keep him under your control." "Mom," James's voice was deadly quiet. "Did you really have this money the whole time? When I had to take out a second mortgage, when Sarah had to sell her grandmother's jewelry to pay for Emma's asthma treatments." Barbara's face paled. "James, sweetheart, I was going to tell you. After the business stabilized. After you'd squeezed every drop of control you could from the situation. Catherine interrupted. She turned to her brother. James, last month when Mom told me you couldn't afford to chip in for Dad's headstone. Was that a lie too? The silence that followed was devastating. Barbara looked around wildly, suddenly realizing she'd lost her audience. Her carefully constructed web of lies was unraveling thread by thread. I demand everyone leave immediately, she announced, trying to reclaim some authority. This is a private family matter. Private like the emails you sent to Emma's private school. I pulled out my phone. The ones where you told them not to accept her application because, and I quote, we wouldn't want to lower the school's standards with charity cases. James's head snapped up. You did what? Or maybe private like the trust fund you set up for all your grandchildren except ours. I continued. The one you announced at last year's party when you thought I was in the bathroom. Those decisions were for the good of the family. Barbara insisted, but her voice had lost its conviction. Even she seemed to realize how hollow her words sounded. No, Mother, James said, gathering both his children into his arms. Those decisions were for the good of your ego, and they stopped today. Barbara's face crumpled. You can't prove any of this. Those documents could be fake. Actually, a new voice spoke up. They're quite real. Harold Matthews, Barbara's personal accountant for 20 years, stepped forward from the crowd. And I've been keeping copies of everything, Barbara, including the transfers you ordered me to make the day before Richard's funeral. Barbara whirled to face him. Harold, you signed a confidentiality agreement, which becomes void in cases of criminal activity, Harold replied calmly. Like, say, hiding assets to avoid estate taxes and creditors. The mighty Barbara Anderson swayed on her feet. Her perfectly coordinated world was collapsing around her, and for once, she had no way to manipulate the situation back under her control. James, she whispered, reaching for her son. You can't let them do this to me. I'm your mother. James looked at her for a long moment, then down at his children. Emma had stopped crying and was watching the scene with wide eyes. Lucas still held his paper bag lunch, crumpled now from clutching it too tightly. You're right, Mom. You are my mother, but these are my children, and I've let you hurt them for the last time. He turned to me. Sarah, what do you want to do? I looked at the offshore account statements in my hand, then at Barbara's pleading face. 10 years of snide comments, deliberate exclusion, and carefully orchestrated cruelty flashed through my mind. But I also saw my children watching, learning from this moment. I think, I said slowly, it's time for some changes in the Anderson family. 3 months after the 4th of July BBQ that shattered the Anderson family's facade, I sat across from Barbara in her lawyer's office. She looked smaller somehow, without her usual armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup. The court-mandated family therapy sessions had taken their toll on her carefully maintained image. Sign here, Mrs. Anderson. The lawyer pointed to the final page. This transfers control of the family business to James and acknowledges the full disclosure of all offshore accounts. Barbara's hand trembled as she picked up the pen. I still don't understand why you haven't turned me into the authorities, she said quietly, looking at me. Because despite everything, you're still their grandmother, I replied. And they deserve the chance to know you, the real you, not the society matriarch who thought love came with conditions. The scandal had rocked Springfield Heights' social circle. Barbara's carefully curated reputation lay in ruins, but something unexpected had emerged from the ashes. Without the pressure to maintain her perfect image, glimpses of a different woman began to appear. Last week, she'd attended Emma's school play, sitting in the back, no designer handbag in sight. She clapped the loudest when Emma took her bow. And yesterday, I found Lucas showing her his rock collection, her genuine interest in his excitement worth more than any expensive gift she could have bought. I've been horrible, Barbara whispered, signing the last page. All these years, I was so focused on maintaining the Anderson name that I forgot what family really means. It's not too late to change that, James said from the doorway. He'd arrived early for the meeting, catching his mother's rare moment of vulnerability. Barbara looked up at her son, tears threatening to spill. How can you even stand to look at me? After what I did to your family? To my own grandchildren? Because they taught me something important, James moved into the room, sitting beside me. They taught me that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to give someone the chance to do better. The lawyer gathered the signed documents, leaving us alone in the conference room. Through the window, I could see Emma and Lucas playing in the building's courtyard, supervised by Catherine. They were teaching their cousins a game they'd learned in public school. The same cousins who once wouldn't sit with them at family events. "I don't deserve a second chance," Barbara said, watching her grandchildren play. "Maybe not," I agreed. "But they deserve a grandmother who loves them for who they are, not what social circle they come from." Barbara nodded slowly. "The therapist says I've spent my whole life trying to buy love with money and status. I didn't know how to give it freely." "Well," James smiled, "you have plenty of time to learn. Starting with Sunday dinner at our house. Paper plates and all." For the first time in 10 years, I saw a genuine smile cross Barbara's face. "I'd like that." As we left the lawyer's office, Emma ran up to her grandmother. "Look what I found." She held up a dandelion, its white seeds ready to scatter in the wind. "Make a wish, Grandma." Barbara knelt down, designer pants touching the concrete without a flinch. "You know what, sweetheart? I think my wish already came true." Watching them blow the dandelion seeds together, I touched the now empty wallet that had once held such damning evidence. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destroying someone, but in giving them the chance to destroy their own walls. The Anderson family would never be the same. But maybe, just maybe, it would be better. "Ice cream." Lucas tugged at Barbara's sleeve. "Mommy says you're buying." Barbara laughed, a real laugh, not her society titter. "Ice cream it is. Paper bowls and all." As we walked toward the ice cream parlor, I couldn't help but smile. The woman who once served my children from paper bags was now proudly holding their hands, her designer purse carrying Lucas's rocks and Emma's dandelions. Sometimes the best endings aren't about winning or losing. They're about learning to see what was always there, hidden behind walls of pride and pretense. The simple, messy, beautiful truth of family.